مشاهدينا بنختم برنامجنا لهالحلقة مع الفنانة الرسامة والفوتوغرافر أودري عنيد. مساء الخير. Good evening, Audrey.
Hi, good evening. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. You are an artist, photographer,
Yes,
and
that's right.
painter. Is
Yes.
this how you like to introduce yourself? Who
Yes.
is Audrey عنيد?
Well, I'm originally from Michigan. I was born in Michigan, but I was raised in New York City, actually, from the Bronx. And now I live in Brooklyn, and I have an art studio in Brooklyn, and I've been living there for about 2 years and working as an artist full time.
So you are a painter and photographer.
Yes.
How do you put those two arts together?
Actually, I combine the two mediums. I'm doing a mixed media series. It's called Refractions, where I use old photographs, mainly family photographs. Most of them were printed in the 1980s and the 1990s, and I actually print with oil paint on the surface of the photographs in different using different techniques and sort of doing different geometric patterns along the surface, whether it's sort of like a web-like painterly surface, or I actually scratch into the physical photographs to reveal the layers of color that have been printed on these photographs.
So how do you get hold of those photographs? Do you ask parents, cousins, family members?
Well, actually, I had been helping my parents clean the house, and I noticed that there's this box of photographs that had been sitting there for years and years, collecting dust. And, you know, I was curious, so I decided to sift through the photographs, and I found a few that I was really drawn to, some beautiful landscapes and some very sort of odd moments, because, you know, when you use film cameras, you don't have the option to edit these photographs. Right. So they would go through an entire roll of film, and they would have a series of photographs. I mean, hundreds of these photographs just sitting in these boxes. So I took it upon myself to take a few of them and sort of experiment with them in my studio. And then, you know, I really fell in love with the process. So I basically told my parents, you know, I'm going to take a lot of these photographs. Is that okay? And they were very supportive about it. So
I'm sure a lot of our viewers, they have tons, and their
Yes,
families,
exactly.
tons and tons of photographs from different parts of the world. Did
That's
you
right.
pick specifically portraits, pictures of parts from Lebanon, from America?
Right, you know, it's actually a mixture, and a lot of it has to do with my family history. So many of these photographs are actually in Beirut, set in Beirut. We used to travel there when I was a child. And there are landscapes of the seascape and the cityscape of Beirut, and there are also a lot of family members in my photographs and pictures of myself, you know, as a child. So it's very interesting looking at these photographs from an adult perspective,
Right.
because these are memories, you know, that I had as a child, and now I'm sort of reinterpreting them.
So when you take those photographs and you start painting on them, do you know what the final result will be?
You know, that's an interesting question. I work very instinctually, meaning, you know, whenever I feel works well in the photograph in that moment. And some of the photographs, when I'm working, I'll paint on the surface, you know, I'll leave it for about a week or so. I'll come back to it and I'll say, you know, I can add some more to this particular one, or I'm going to leave it as is. So when I go into it, you know, I don't have a set idea in mind necessarily, but the process sort of evolves as I go.
So what do you feel from the result of your projects, of your work? What kind of feelings does your work bring to you?
Right. Well, you know, it's interesting because a lot of these memories have been abstracted through the painting process. And it's interesting to approach them with an adult perspective. And they become almost dreamlike moments, you know, very hazy. And they are sort of distant, but they become closer to me as I'm painting on their surfaces and as I'm reconfiguring these images and these moments from, you know, my personal history and from the history of my parents as well.
Let's go together, Audrey, and see some of your work.
Sure.
You know, let's start with the first painting, and you called it Before You Really Knew Me. It's going to show on the screen. So what is that? Is that you in the background behind the oil?
Yes, so this is actually from when I lived in Michigan. So I was born in Michigan and I spent about 2 years there. And this is in our backyard and in an inflatable pool, and that's my neighbor, I believe. And I titled it Before You Really Knew Me because, you know, I haven't seen this person in years, you know, 23 years about. And, you know, in those moments when we're children, we're very naive and we start to befriend everyone. You know, we don't really make decisions about who we want to spend time with.
Exactly.
So,
Let's go to the second painting, which is Beirut.
Yes.
This is interesting.
So this is a seascape of Beirut, and as you can see, it's been highly abstracted in this particular piece. And I even used a knife to scratch into the surface. And when you start scratching, you can see the hot pink come through the image. And you know, Beirut, it's close to me, but at the same time, it's far from me because I grew up in the U.S. and as much as I would like to be close to Beirut, there is still that distance there. And so you can see there's a bit of haziness in that image.
Absolutely. Let's move to Pause.
Right.
Why did you call this one Pause?
So this one, Pause, I called it Pause because this is a tender moment between my parents sort of resting, taking a nap. And here you can see it's almost a vulnerable moment, you know, when you're sleeping. So I called it Pause because they're just taking a break. In a way.
Let's move to the fourth one, Streets of Beirut.
Sure. So in this picture, there's my grandfather and my sister. She was born in Beirut, and this particular piece is very dear to me because, you know, I was close with my grandfather, and I only got to see him very rarely, you know, whenever I would visit Beirut, which was not that often, but I tried to capture the sort of yellow hues of the city.
This is really beautiful because you can see the focus on the characters.
Right, that's right, yes. So I often make decisions about what I want to keep in focus and what I want to blur.
To blur using the oil paint.
That's right.
The following painting is Suspended City.
Yes. This particular piece is interesting because it is from a series of photographs that my father took while he was in China, visiting China. So this one is from an interesting perspective. You know, it's sort of almost an aerial view of the city. And you know, I approached this one with a sort of interesting use of color. You know, blue and red are not very in tune with the actual surroundings, so it's a nice contrast.
Absolutely. And the last one is called Kaslik.
Yes.
Why Kaslik?
So as a child, when we would visit Beirut, we would often go to this beach club called ATCL in Kaslik, and I have very fond memories there.
Actually, I have to tell all the viewers also that I was brought up in Kaslik, and Kaslik is the name of a street in Jounieh, but it became so famous that it's actually overshadows the name of the town, the main city, Jounieh. So people used to say we're going to Kaslik, whether or not they're going to that specific street or not. So you spent a lot of time in Kaslik.
Yes, as a child and with my parents, you know, sort of learning to swim and being in the ocean. It's a very beautiful place, and I have very fond memories.
Absolutely. Audrey, thank you so much for being with us.
Oh, you're welcome.
It's actually always a pleasure and an honor to see a female artist, let alone Lebanese, let alone Arab, to be you know, young and so working such beautiful paintings. I'm looking forward for your next show and your next work, and good luck with everything.
Thank you so much.
مشاهدينا بنهاية الحلقة ومع ذكريات أودري عنيد ومداخلات جميع المشاهدين المصريين وغير المصريين ولبنانيين، أنا بحيي جميع المشاهدين من كل الجنسيات العربية. لقائنا لليلة انتهى، ولكن عندنا موعد الأسبوع القادم.